Mina lived in a small quiet town where nothing surprising ever happened, and most days looked the same, but she liked simple life and enjoyed walking around her garden every morning, checking the plants and making sure everything stayed healthy and clean. One warm afternoon she noticed a small mound near the far corner of her backyard. At first she thought it was just an ant nest because the soil looked shifted and tiny insects moved around the top, and she did not pay much attention to it. She had many ant nests around her house before, and they never caused any trouble. So she simply brushed her hand on her dress and walked back inside without thinking anything else about it. The next morning when she stepped outside, the mound looked bigger, and the soil seemed pushed upward as if something underneath was slowly rising. Mina frowned because ants usually made narrow little hills, but this one looked wider and heavier. She bent down and touched the surface and felt an odd warmth coming from the soil. It was strange because the weather was cool that morning, and the ground usually stayed cold after the night. She pulled her hand back and looked around, wondering if her eyes were playing tricks, but the heat felt real, and a small vibration passed through the ground like a soft hum that lasted only a second. Mina stood still and listened for any sound, but all she heard was the distant chirping of birds. She told herself not to worry and went back inside, but for the rest of the day the odd mound stayed in her mind. Whenever she looked out the window she felt as if the ground was quietly breathing under that corner. By evening curiosity became stronger than her fear, so she took a small garden spade and walked toward the mound. She pushed the spade gently into the soil, and the earth moved more easily than normal. It felt loose, almost like it had been placed there recently. Then she heard a small clicking sound from beneath the surface, not loud, but sharp enough to make her step back. That night she could not sleep. Her mind kept returning to the heat, the vibration, and the strange clicking. She wondered if some kind of underground animal had moved into her yard, but she had lived there for years and never seen anything unusual. The next morning she made a decision. She would contact someone who understood nature better than her. A friend told her once about a local environmental office that helped people identify odd things in their land, so she found their number and called, explaining everything she had seen and felt. The woman on the phone sounded calm but also curious and asked Mina to stay away from the mound until their team arrived. 2 hours later a white van pulled up outside Mina's house. 3 scientists stepped out holding equipment that Mina had only seen in documentaries. They introduced themselves as Dr. Lewis, Dr. Hannah, and Dr. Mark. They listened carefully as Mina explained again how the mound appeared and how it kept growing. Dr. Lewis asked if the heat she felt was constant or changing, but Mina could not answer because she had only touched it once. The team walked to the mound, slowly examining the soil color, the movement of insects, and the shape of the hill. Dr. Hannah placed a small device on the ground, and it made a soft beep before showing numbers on a tiny screen. She looked up surprised and called the others to check. Mina's heart started beating faster as the scientists whispered among themselves. Dr. Mark asked if there had been any construction in the area recently, or if old pipes ran under the garden, but Mina shook her head, explaining the land had stayed the same for many years. Dr. Hannah knelt down and brushed some soil away, revealing a layer underneath that looked darker and smoother than normal dirt. She said this was not typical for an ant nest, and the soil seemed packed by force from below rather than from insects building tunnels. Dr. Lewis pulled out a thin metal probe and pushed it into the ground, but it hit something solid after only a few inches. The moment the metal touched the object, a soft echo came back as if it struck a hollow surface. The scientists exchanged quick glances, and Dr. Lewis looked excited. He asked Mina if she noticed any strange noise at night, and she admitted that the soft hum she heard might not have been her imagination. Dr. Mark took out a small handheld scanner and placed it over the mound. The scanner produced light waves that passed through the soil, forming lines. On the screen his face slowly changed as the image became clearer. A rounded structure appeared underneath the ground with smooth edges that could not be natural. It looked man-made or something unknown. Mina felt a chill. Although the sun was warm, the idea that something hidden lay beneath her peaceful garden frightened her, but also pulled her curiosity stronger. The scientists continued to examine the mound, and Dr. Hannah said they should not dig further without proper safety tools because the scanner showed a deeper network of shapes below the surface. Dr. Lewis asked Mina if she felt any shaking recently, and she remembered the vibration under her hand, which she mentioned to them. The 3 scientists began to speak in quiet voices, clearly trying to understand how such a thing could exist without anyone noticing for years. The team decided to take soil samples and send them to their lab for quick tests. They promised to return the next day with more equipment. Dr. Mark cautioned Mina not to disturb the mound and to avoid stepping near it until they understood what it was. Mina agreed, though her mind was full of questions. As she watched them leave, she looked again at the quiet hill of soil. It did not look dangerous, but something about it felt alive, as if waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. As evening came, She prepared dinner, but could not focus because every small sound outside made her turn her head, wondering if the mound was changing again. When the night settled, she walked to her window and looked at the corner of the yard. A faint glow seemed to pulse beneath the soil, only for a moment before fading into darkness. Mina stepped back, her breath shaking. She knew she had not imagined it. Something under there produced light and heat, but she had no idea what could do that. So silently she stayed awake most of the night, listening to every sound outside. She felt a growing mix of fear and wonder because she understood now that it was not just an ant nest, and whatever rested below her garden was something far more unusual than she ever expected. Tomorrow the scientists would return, and she felt the truth waiting close just beneath her feet, ready to change everything she believed about her quiet, simple world. The next morning Mina waited on her porch long before the scientists arrived. She barely slept, and her eyes kept drifting toward the strange mound in her yard, expecting something to move or rise again. The memory of the faint glow from last night stayed in her mind, and she felt a growing unease mixed with curiosity. When the white van finally appeared on the road, she felt relief wash over her. The three scientists stepped out carrying larger equipment, this time including a folding table, thick cables and devices with blinking lights. They greeted Mina kindly, but their faces showed tension, as if they also sensed something serious beneath the ground. Dr. Lewis walked straight to the mound and checked the soil surface without touching it. Then he placed a heat sensor above it and waited for the numbers to appear. The reading climbed quickly, far higher than normal soil temperature. Dr. Lewis looked at the others and nodded, as if this confirmed what he suspected. Dr. Hannah opened a case and removed a small round scanner, which she placed carefully beside the mound. The machine hummed softly and projected thin waves into the ground. Mina held her breath as lines formed on the screen showing the rounded structure again, but this time the image expanded. Deeper layers appeared under the first shape, forming something like a chamber connected by narrow passages. Dr. Mark leaned closer to the screen and whispered that it looked too symmetrical to be natural. Mina listened carefully, trying to understand what they meant. Dr. Lewis explained in simple words that nature rarely created perfect shapes underground, and whatever was beneath her garden had clear edges and a firm surface. Mina asked quietly if it could be an old storage tank, but the scientists shook their heads, saying the structure was too smooth and did not match any known material. The hum of the scanner grew slightly louder, and Dr. Hannah adjusted the settings to improve the image, and then something shifted on the screen. A small movement appeared inside the rounded object, not fast but steady like a slow pulse. The scientists stared in silence. The movement repeated again, almost like the chamber was expanding and contracting, as if something inside produced energy or air. Dr. Mark stepped back and said this was not possible for a normal underground object, and they needed to collect more data before deciding how to proceed. Mina felt her heart pound at the idea that something inside the structure was active. She wrapped her arms around herself and watched as the team prepared another device shaped like a metal cylinder, along with cables that connected to a larger monitor. Dr. Hannah explained this tool would help measure vibrations and sound activity below the surface. They placed it gently on the mound, and the screen lit up with wave patterns. At first the waves were small and irregular, but soon rhythmic signals began to appear. A soft repeated pattern came through like a heartbeat echo, though slower. Mina stared at the screen, unable to believe what she was seeing. Dr. Lewis said they must remain calm and reminded them that unknown underground formations could behave strangely due to heated gases or shifting pressure, but even he did not sound convinced by his explanation. The rhythmic pulse continued steady and undeniable. After studying the signals for several minutes, the scientists agreed they needed to open a small section of soil, but very slowly and carefully. Dr. Lewis brought out a narrow tool shaped like a drill, though much smaller than a normal one. He explained that it would remove soil in a thin vertical path, allowing them to reach the surface of the hidden object without damaging it. Mina watched anxiously as he positioned the tool and activated it. The tip rotated gently and sank into the soil, making almost no noise. The drill moved down a few inches and then stopped when it touched something solid. Dr. Lewis turned off the machine and looked relieved that it reached the surface safely. He then pulled out a flat brush and removed loose soil, revealing a small part of the hidden structure. For the first time Mina saw it with her own eyes, a surface smooth like glass and slightly glowing from within, not bright, but enough to show a soft color that shifted between pale blue and green. It looked nothing like metal, stone, or plastic, and felt alive in a strange way. Dr. Hannah leaned close and said she had never seen anything like it in her years of research. Dr. Mark used a scanner to read the material, but the device showed no known element or sample in its database, which only raised more questions. Mina stepped back, feeling overwhelmed. She went to stand near her porch while the scientists continued their observations. Their quiet whispers mixed with the humming of machines made her yard feel less like a garden and more like a research station. The sunlight grew stronger as the day progressed, yet the glowing surface beneath the soil did not fade. Dr. Lewis finally called Mina over, and asked when she first noticed the mound growing. She explained, "Everything again from the first day, until the faint glow the previous night." The team listened carefully, and Dr. Mark noted that the structure seemed to be increasing in activity. They set up a perimeter around the mound using small markers and told Mina that safety required a bit of distance. They were not sure if the object was harmless, or if it emitted anything unknown. Mina nodded. Even though fear tightened her chest, she trusted the scientists, but the idea that something active rested below her garden made her feel as if her home had changed forever. A few hours passed while the team ran tests measuring temperature, light emission, and vibration frequency. Then around midday, the unexpected happened. The ground under the mound shifted again, this time more clearly. A soft tremor passed through the soil, lifting the mound by an inch before settling back down. The scientists rushed toward the scanners and checked the readings. The heartbeat-like pulse increased slightly, and the glow under the soil brightened for a moment before dimming again. Mina covered her mouth with her hand, unsure if she should be scared or amazed. Dr. Hannah said gently that the object appeared to respond to changes, possibly due to temperature or external movement, but she admitted they still did not understand its true nature. Dr. Lewis decided they needed to contact specialists from a larger research center because this discovery might be far beyond their experience. Before leaving, the team reinforced the perimeter and told Mina not to approach the mound. They promised to return as soon as the new experts arrived, and warned her that the structure might continue to shift as the internal activity increased. Mina nodded, though the idea of staying alone in the house while the strange underground object pulsed beneath her land made her uneasy. She watched the scientists pack their equipment and drive away, then turned slowly toward the quiet corner of her yard. The mound looked ordinary again, but she knew it was anything but normal. As the afternoon sunlight dipped lower, the air around the garden felt different, as if a silent energy hung above the soil. Mina walked back inside and stood near the window watching the mound. She remembered the glow from the previous night, and wondered if she would see it again. Knowing she could not ignore it, she stayed downstairs with the lights off, hoping to catch any sign of movement. As darkness settled, a faint shimmer appeared again under the soil, not strong, but steady, like a quiet signal. Reaching the surface, Mina watched without blinking, realizing that whatever rested beneath her garden was far more active than before, and the mystery was only beginning to unfold. Mina woke up before sunrise with a strange feeling in her chest, as if the air carried a quiet warning. She walked straight to the window and looked at the mound in her backyard. The faint glow had faded, but the soil looked higher than the previous day, as if the structure beneath had pushed upward again. She pressed her hand gently to the glass, trying to understand what was happening. The scientists had promised to return with a larger team, yet the night had passed slowly, and every sound outside had kept her alert. She wondered what new changes had happened underground while the world slept. By mid-morning, she heard a rumbling sound from the road and saw 3 vans arriving, followed by a small cargo truck. A team of 7 specialists stepped out wearing protective suits and carrying heavy equipment. Dr. Lewis, Dr. Hannah, and Dr. Mark greeted her warmly and introduced the new team members, including a geologist, an engineer, and a material expert. Mina felt both relieved and anxious as more people gathered around the strange mound. The scientists explained that they planned to uncover a small section of the structure today, but only if the readings showed no danger, and they promised to keep Mina safely away from the digging area. The team began by setting up a large tent around the mound to control light and temperature. They placed scanners inside and monitored the activity of the object. The heartbeat-like pulse continued steady, though slightly stronger than the previous day. The material expert named Dr. Sam studied the glowing surface through a small hole left by the earlier test, and said the structure looked like a shell made from something unknown and possibly organic. Mina listened from a safe distance as they discussed how the shape seemed too perfect for nature, yet too unusual for human engineering. The more she heard, the more her curiosity grew, even though fear sat quietly at the edge of her thoughts. After an hour of testing, Dr. Lewis announced they would carefully remove a thin layer of soil to expose more of the shell. They worked slowly, brushing soil away with delicate tools rather than machines to avoid damaging anything. Mina watched from outside the tent, wanting to see everything but also afraid of what might appear as the soil fell away. The glowing surface expanded in shape. The rounded structure beneath the ground stretched wider than they expected, and the faint color that shifted between blue and green seemed to move slowly across the surface like a soft wave. Dr. Hannah touched the shell lightly with a sensor, and her face filled with surprise. It felt warm and produced a gentle vibration against the device. Dr. Sam examined the shell through a microscope and reported that the material appeared woven at a molecular level like fibers forming a protective layer. Something alive at some point could have created it. Although no known creature matched such behavior, Mina felt her breath catch. She lived an ordinary life, yet somehow her small garden now held something beyond science. One of the geologists pointed out a smooth line running along the shell surface, almost like a seam. He suggested it could be a boundary or a possible opening, though none of them were sure. Dr. Lewis instructed them not to force anything open until they understood more, because they did not know what lay inside. As noon approached, the tent filled with low hums from multiple machines reading data in real time. Then without warning the ground trembled again, but this time the vibration was stronger and lasted longer. The scientists froze in place as the glowing shell pulsed with brighter color. Mina stepped back, instinctively fearing the ground might split open. The light from the shell changed from pale blue to a vivid green for a short moment before returning to normal. Dr. Hannah checked the monitor and confirmed the internal activity had increased. Suddenly something inside the structure was responding to the environment, possibly even to their presence. The team moved quickly to stabilize the area using support frames to prevent soil collapse. Dr. Lewis told Mina that this discovery might be more significant than they first thought, and they needed to proceed with extreme care. Mina nodded. Even though her hands trembled slightly, she tried to stay calm, reminding herself that the scientists were trained for such situations. Yet her garden no longer felt like a safe, familiar place. Instead it felt like the center of a quiet event she could not understand. Later in the afternoon, Dr. Mark brought out a long, slender device shaped like a rod, which he said could read internal density without touching the structure. He placed it near the shell, and the readings appeared on a small tablet. His eyes widened as he explained that the chamber inside had multiple layers, and something at the center emitted controlled energy, not random, but steady, almost intelligent. Mina listened in silence, wondering how something buried for unknown time could remain active. The idea made her stomach twist, yet a spark of fascination rose inside her, because she realized she was witnessing something no one else ever had. The specialists gathered around the seam-like line and studied it closely. Dr. Sam said it resembled a hatch or natural opening, but sealed tightly. They debated whether the structure grew around something, or whether it was built intentionally. They agreed not to open it without stronger equipment, but they continued collecting data from the surface, which now felt firmer than the day before. Then the engineer named Paul noticed something unusual. The shell made a faint tapping sound, not constant, but rhythmic, as if something inside signaled outward. The tapping came in patterns, not random at all. The tapping repeated again, and the scientists recorded every sequence. Dr. Lewis said in a soft, serious voice that the pattern resembled coded communication, not from a machine, but from something alive inside. Mina felt her breath catch as her mind raced with possibilities, none of which felt real to her world. The team analyzed the pattern and noticed it changed slightly each time, as if responding to the environment. The geologist checked the outer ground and confirmed the soil around the structure showed signs of rising pressure, meaning the chamber might be preparing to open on its own. As the sun dipped lower, the glow beneath the soil brightened again. The scientists worked quickly, organizing equipment around the seam. They did not want to force anything, but they also wanted to be ready in case the structure opened by itself. Mina stayed near the tent entrance, watching every movement, her heart beating fast. The sounds from inside grew clearer, a soft echo that moved like breath. The team turned off all extra machines to reduce noise and listened carefully. Then a faint crackling sound came from the shell surface, not loud, but clear enough for everyone to hear. The seam along the shell flickered with a thin line of bright green light for a moment before fading. The scientists stared silently. Dr. Lewis whispered that the structure might be reacting to air pressure or light, and that it could open soon. Mina felt a mix of fear, wonder, and disbelief, because she never imagined anything like this could exist beneath her simple garden. The team cautiously backed away, giving space in case the opening widened. The air grew warmer around the mound, and the heartbeat, like pulse, became faster. Though still gentle, the ground did not shake, but the energy in the air felt different, almost expectant. Night began to fall, and the scientists set up soft lights around the tent to keep watch, but they avoided shining anything directly on the shell. The team decided to monitor through the night, because the internal activity kept rising. Mina stayed awake near the doorway with a chair. Unable to return to her house, she watched through the thin fabric of the tent as the glow beneath the shell shifted softly. Every few seconds the tapping sound grew slightly louder, as if the structure sensed something approaching, a moment that had not come for a long time. The air felt still, waiting, and Mina understood that whatever rested inside the glowing chamber was getting ready to reveal itself, and the world around her would never be the same again. Night slowly covered the sky while Mina and the team stayed inside the large tent, watching the glowing structure from a safe distance. The air felt heavy with quiet tension, as if the soil itself waited for something to happen. The faint tapping from the shell grew slightly louder, and sometimes shifted into a soft hum that vibrated through the ground. Every person inside the tent froze each time the sound changed. Mina sat near the entrance holding a blanket around her shoulders. Even though the night was warm, her eyes stayed fixed on the glowing chamber, knowing the moment everyone feared or hoped for was coming closer with every passing minute. Dr. Lewis checked the monitors again and saw that the internal energy had risen steadily for the last hour. The shell temperature increased too, but not in a dangerous way. It looked more like controlled heat, as if the structure awakened slowly and carefully. The seam-like line on the shell glowed with a thin green streak, then flickered out again. The specialists whispered among themselves, trying to decide if they should prepare for an emergency or allow the process to unfold naturally. Dr. Hannah believed the chamber might be designed to open only under certain conditions, and forcing it could be risky. Dr. Mark agreed, saying the pattern of activity showed intelligence rather than chaos. Mina listened to their conversation, feeling both comforted and frightened. The idea that something intelligent rested under her garden did not feel real, but everything happening in front of her eyes proved it. She wondered how long the object had been here, and why it chose this moment to activate. No one had answers, but the uncertainty made each second feel longer and heavier. As the night deepened, the lights inside the tent were dim, and the glowing shell cast soft, moving colors on the faces of the scientists, creating an atmosphere that felt almost unreal, like a scene from a distant world. Around midnight, the ground made a soft shift, not violent, but noticeable enough that everyone stood up quickly. The mound rose slightly, and the seam on the shell lit up with a steady bright green line. The tapping sound inside changed into a long, slow tone that echoed gently through the tent. Dr. Lewis ordered everyone to step back and maintain full distance. The team moved to the far edges of the tent, while the glowing seam began to widen very slowly. Mina felt her heart race, her breath shaking as the line opened like a thin mouth of light, revealing darkness beneath the glowing shell. The opening was no bigger than a hand, but it was enough to show that the chamber was hollow. A warm rush of air moved out through the opening, not strong but steady, like breath escaping from a sealed space. The air smelled clean and strangely sweet, something none of the scientists had smelled before. They observed the opening carefully, watching for movement, but the inside remained completely dark. Dr. Hannah crouched near a monitor to check the readings and announced that the energy inside was stabilizing, which meant the opening was intentional, not caused by pressure or damage. Dr. Mark suggested sending a small camera through the opening, but the seam stopped widening and pulsed with gentle light, as if waiting for something. Minutes passed slowly, and no one made a move. The silence inside the tent felt so thick that Mina could hear her own heartbeat. Then a soft glow came from inside the chamber, not from the shell, but from something deeper within. The glow flickered like a slow heartbeat, mimicking the same rhythm they had been tracking for days. The light grew a little brighter, and something began to rise inside the chamber, though the shape was still hidden by shadows. Dr. Lewis lifted his hand to stop anyone from acting too quickly. Everyone watched in total silence as the object inside moved slowly toward the opening. A round, smooth form appeared first, glowing faintly blue like a small orb. The orb floated just a few inches above the hollow floor inside the chamber, and its light grew stronger with each second. It moved with gentle motions, almost like it was alive, but not in a way anyone understood. The orb reached the opening and hovered near the seam, as if examining the world outside. Dr. Sam whispered that the object responded to the environment and might not be dangerous. The orb pulsed gently, and the color shifted from blue to pale green, matching the glow of the shell seams. Mina took a step forward without thinking, drawn by the gentle movement of the orb, but Dr. Lewis placed a hand on her arm, reminding her to stay back. She nodded, and stood still, though her eyes did not leave the floating object. The orb drifted slightly higher, and then projected a thin beam of light downward onto the soil. The beam scanned the ground, then moved across the air around it, as if studying everything it touched. Dr. Sam gasped softly, explaining that the beam measured environmental data in real time. He said the orb acted like a probe or messenger, something designed to explore. The orb drifted slowly out of the chamber and floated freely in the tent, leaving the glowing shell behind. Its light reflected off the equipment and cast soft shadows on the tent walls. Everyone held their breath as they watched it move with gentle curiosity. The orb approached one of the scanners and hovered inches above it. The reading lights flickered rapidly as the device reacted to the orb presence. Dr. Hannah whispered that the orb communicated with the machine, though not in any known language. The idea stunned everyone, including Mina, who felt a strange calm despite the extraordinary moment unfolding in front of her. The orb turned slowly, and drifted toward Mina, stopping several feet away from her face. She froze in place, her breath caught in her chest. As the gentle blue glow settled on her skin, the orb pulsed softly, then shifted its light pattern, as if responding to her presence. Mina did not move, afraid she might break whatever connection formed between them. For a moment, the tent fell silent again, and she felt as if the orb looked right through her, not in a threatening way, but in a curious, almost peaceful manner. Then the orb turned away slowly, and drifted back toward the chamber, hovering just above the opening. The inner glow of the chamber brightened again, and the orb slipped back inside. The seam glowed intensely, then slowly began to close, sealing the chamber. Once more the tapping sound inside faded, and the heartbeat like pulse quieted until it became nearly silent. The scientists stared, stunned by what they had witnessed. No one spoke for a full minute. Mina watched the shell surface until the last bit of green light disappeared, and the glowing chamber returned to a soft, dim blue, as if it had gone back to sleep after completing something important. The team immediately began checking their monitors and recording every detail, but Mina remained still, her eyes fixed on the sealed chamber. She felt a strange calm settle in her heart, something deeper than fear or excitement. The orb had moved with a purpose and left peacefully without causing harm. When Dr. Lewis approached her, he said softly that they had never seen anything like this before, and the world would need time to understand what lay beneath her garden. Mina nodded slowly, still processing everything she had seen. The night grew quiet again, and the glowing chamber rested beneath the soil, unchanged, but no longer mysterious in the same way. Mina understood now that whatever had awakened beneath her garden was not a threat. It was something ancient, intelligent, and patient, something that observed the world rather than harmed it. As she looked at the mound, she felt a strange connection, as if the land itself carried a story far older than anyone could imagine, and she realized her life would never return to its simple, peaceful path, because the discovery beneath her garden had changed everything forever.